Welcome back, everybody, to the REDX Podcast. I'm Curtis Finn, your host. Pretty excited today because we keep having a repeat guest because he's full of some wisdom. For those of you that may be new, if you're new, this podcast has been running for quite a few years. Our whole goal is that you can listen for 20, 30, 40 minutes and that you have something actionable that you can take and implement into your business to get real results. So if you're participating anywhere on Facebook or YouTube or anywhere, any of the 10 places this streams, if you have questions, put them in there, participate in there. The team is always there to answer questions if they don't get answered from us in the conversation. But also if resources come up and books we talk about, whatever, we try to put the links there for you. So make sure that you're engaged and participating. Just to set the stage for the conversation we're going to have today, we sent out a survey to thousands of agents, and here's what we found. We found that there is overwhelming sense of chaos. It was really that agents feel like they don't have control in their business. That the systems that used to work, whether it's buying portal leads or their sphere of influence, that they don't have control in a way that they can scale and get the business that they're hoping for. And so overwhelmingly, people did not accomplish their goals for 2025. And there's this sense of what I don't know what to do different in 2026 to make sure that I'm going to have any different outcome. And so in preparation for that, we contacted our guest today because everything he talks about is this. It's about gaining control and having control in your business. So welcome to the podcast, Lars.
Awesome. Yeah, this will be a really good time. I mean, I've been at this for a really long time. Not only did I sell a bunch of homes, I've trained agents to sell a bunch of homes. And, leading up to this conversation, I said, man, it is irresponsible to not build lead gen levers around at least 3 of the 5 data sources that you guys provide. I mean, specifically expireds and for sale by owners. And yeah, so I'm battle tested, a grizzly veteran in this industry. So I'm happy to be here and contribute and help your audience in any way I can.
Well, I appreciate it. We just so people know, Lars and I, we probably met right around recession time, wasn't it? Like 08,
yeah,
09?
There are very few. I believe REDX, that this industry is really good at selling us subscriptions. And many of those subscriptions, came in my business and went out very quickly. It's like, oh, that thing I tried that was oversold, never worked, never did the thing. And the thing I love about you guys is that you are so deep into one single sort of thing you've been providing to the industry. So yeah, this is the longest standing, monthly recurring bill that I've had in my business is what you guys do. So yeah, and it probably was around 2009 or so. So just as things were sort of setting in roster, agent roster count, similar to kind of what's going on now. I mean, agent rosters are diving, dramatically. Agents are getting out of the business. There's just not enough deals. And to your point, what's being sold to the industry is not sustainable. I don't know the numbers, but my guess is if there's, 100 homes that sell in the United States, let's say, so there's 100 buyers in the entire year. I would venture to guess there's thousands of leads sold.
Well, we have that data. So last year there was about 4 million transactions. There was over 1 billion leads sold to real estate agents.
Yeah. So that is 25x or 250x.
250x.
Yeah. So I wouldn't have guessed that high, but that's amazing. Right. So yeah, to your point, to the lead in, agents are just playing the wrong game entirely. Yeah. And the approach and the pivot, it is a mindset shift. I was just coaching on this on Monday to a newer agent. And I said, avoid everything that is being sold to you. because it's out of economic model. You can't scale it. You get in this rat race, this, treadmill of just churning out these low quality leads, and you feel like you're productive, but it doesn't turn into, happy clients and commission checks.
Yeah.
And I said the work is to set up these lead generation levers, and we'll talk more about it. And it takes a little bit of work to set these things up. It's database, it's brand authority or social proof, social media, and then a couple other lead gen levers. If you threw me back into production in this market, expireds for sale by owners, obviously using REDX would be, that's where I would go. And I said it's irresponsible to not work those two lead sources.
Yeah.
Like if you're a real estate agent and you're not listing expireds, setting appointments with expireds and for sale by owners regularly, you're not in the game of real estate.
Right. Well, and we've been talking a lot about, there's a lot of ways to do that, right? There's a lot, whether you're going to pick up the phone and you're going to grind and eat rocks, because sometimes that's what it feels like when you're prospecting on the phone, or you're going to do other marketing mediums. It's so interesting for me, 20 years in this industry, to look around and go, we still don't think the same as a lot of other businesses. And most businesses are going to go, okay, what I got to do marketing to generate business. and you do marketing, and then then every marketer knows that you start with, well, who is the audience that I'm going to go after? Well, and we looked up in the pre-show here, we looked up the stat, because I get this report every week. As of, this, because this is recorded and it'll go live here soon, but as of October 23rd, 45.6% of all canceleds and expireds, which there's been 2.7 million of them, right? 45.6% end up back on the MLS. And so if you're like, oh man, where do I go get business? Well, let's just, if you had 1,000 internet leads that convert at what, 0.1% conversion over a 24-month sales cycle, I think is what NAR says after their research, or 0.2%, so 0.1% per year convert. If you had 1,000 of those, or if you had 1,000 canceleds and expireds, and out of the 1,000 canceled expireds, there's 450 listings. Mm-hmm. Like, where do you want to spend your time? Where do you want to spend your marketing dollars? Where do you want to build a lead gen, lever around? Is it the low conversion or the high conversion?
Yeah, and I don't know, what actually is going on. Is it that, and I hope this doesn't, I'm guessing that your listeners are playing a higher level game than the average real estate agent, but I wonder, that a lot of real estate agents do not even remotely carry this business or growth mindset. And so, they're just bombarded with, they actually think, to your point, that if I spend money on Zillow, or I, go with one of these seller lead referral companies and I spend 40% at closing, I'm doing my marketing. And that is so far.
That you're renting someone else's funnel, right? Yeah. Yeah, you don't own anything, which means you can't scale it the way that you want.
Yeah. Who else would check the box on like you're doing the right thing in your business by letting someone else be in between you and the end customer? Like, put in the effort, seek out, stuff like this, put in the effort to build the systems, into your business. We call them lead gen levers. Build those into your business that allow you to have just a normal inflow of leads, and they're just way higher quality. And there's a bunch of different ways to go about it. But I think it's like a mindset decision, or maybe just an awareness that if you don't have, stuff you're putting out there, or things you're doing for expireds, for sale by owners, motivated sellers, or we did an awesome mastermind in my group around your geo leads. And yeah, that's a longer play, but I mean, you can like in seconds figure out which areas in your market are worth spending time on, just instantly finding out the turnover rate just by drawing like a circle around an address. It's ridiculous. So if you're not like in that game, then the chances that you have any freedom whatsoever, whether it's time or money freedom in the future, it's really, really low. Because if you're spending on average 30 to 40% at closing, that's like a 2.5 times, basically. Yeah. What's the metric? You're willing to spend $4,000 for a $10,000 commission check.
Right.
And so that's a 2.5 like gross, return on spend. And that's our metric is 8 to 10 times. So if you put the effort in to put together, and I was more of a direct response guy where I used your data a little bit differently than some other folks that, are willing to do outreach via phone. I just came up with like different either postcards or letters or, and we settled on a single direct mail piece. People were amazed that one year we did 750,000 GCI between expireds and for sale by owners. And that wasn't with with an outbound effort. So you just got to commit to being a business builder versus, just like trying different lead sources where someone else is the marketer.
Well, let's talk about. I'd love to talk about two things that you kind of mentioned. First is you mentioned you've got to pivot. You have to a mindset pivot. You have to change your mindset. So I want to talk about what that means and give some practical advice of how agents should be thinking about their business and about lead gen levers. And then I'd love to dive in and talk about a lever that they can start thinking about implementing right now. I mean, we've been talking about expires and FSBOs, but let's get into the tactics. And I think that your success historically is more relevant to the audience today because there is more friction with phone calling, right? Your connection rates are a fourth of what they used to be because we're not calling people on the do not call list. And so your connection rates are about 5%, which means you can still talk to five people an hour, that where half of them are going to list. So there's still an opportunity there, but there's so many more opportunities with other marketing mediums like direct mail, like social media, like door knocking. So, but let's first talk about mindset.
Yeah. So, I came into the industry, and as I think God would have it, I joined a coaching program, and the first book that program had us read, and it kind of infiltrated the entire coaching program, was E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. Yeah. And so it doesn't give you any tactics. I could probably explain the gist of it here in like 30 seconds, but essentially the E-Myth is the entrepreneurial myth. You think you're a real estate agent, you have all this freedom, and you're like an entrepreneur, you're out there like rise and grind or whatever you think about being a real estate agent. But you never actually build a business, so we all have these three personalities inside us, and it's a technician, it's a manager, and an entrepreneur. The entrepreneur is casting vision for a better future. The manager, well, the technician is doing the technical work every day, setting appointments, listing homes, running signs around town. The manager is the person that sits in between, that if you're doing any entrepreneurial vision type work, you're like 3 years from now, I want to close 100 homes and I want to work 40 hours a week. I've got a licensed assistant. The technician has to show up every day still because no one else is there. Right. And the manager builds the systems that bridge the future to the present. And most agents never let their manager, not only do they never even let their manager, most of them aren't wired in this way, and they just have to work through some of the, just spending some time building systems that allow things to run easier in their business. So that's the mindset shift, is that you have to think of yourself as a business builder versus a real estate practitioner, where everything relies on me, even if it's a virtual assistant, even if it's a junior agent at some point that shows homes for you on evenings or weekends, or like there's so many ways to gain leverage, but it has to be this mindset of, getting to, and we've identified like 4 stages to get to 1 million GCI. Most agents never get to 100,000 GCI, but right. Stage 2 is 250,000 GCI. That's when you're pretty busy, but reality is you're not financially free. 500 to 1 million GCI is where things get really fun, and it's not a very complicated business. So you have to be, in order to do the work necessary, which is usually suck work. I do it every day as well. The reason I do it is because I see in my mind, and I've written down 3 years from now what my business, what my life, what people around me are achieving. And that's the only reason I can do what I do today and keep showing up is because I'm clear on my 3-year vision. And that's the entrepreneur working in me that I set aside time in a weekly planning session for that person. Every quarter, we review the quarter, the entrepreneur in me. Every year, we build out another 3-year vision and a 1-year plan. And so all that like 3-year vision, 1-year plan, 90-day cycles makes my weekly and daily and hourly work very easy because I'm just clear on what I'm building. So that's when I say mindset, it's kind of built into the mindset, but then also the planning and the productivity and, sticking to the time blocks I committed to because they're attached to this 3-year thing.
Right. Well, and I don't want people to miss something you said because I think our goal is always to have somebody take an action item. So to me, the action item is if you don't have the future written down of what you want this to look like, then you are. It's not hokey. It's not foo-foo. This isn't the secret. You're not going to mold the universe or whatever. But it's real. I was in a mastermind just a couple of weeks ago. There was 22 team leaders, and we kind of had these hot seat forums where somebody go up and they talk about the issues in the business, and then everybody else help solve those issues. It was fascinating. You could tell that the team leaders that had teams that were doing 100 million in production versus those they had to be doing 20 million to even qualify to be in the mastermind. But there was a stark difference between the 20 million production teams and the 100 million. And I remember the whole thing was like, wait, the $100 million production team leads couldn't even understand that somebody didn't have their vision written down. And it wasn't just vision of what my business is going to look like. It's what is your life going to look like? Because I that's the only way if people go back and watch a bunch of other podcasts, I think we did one with you on this topic, was all about burning out, getting burnt out. Mm-hmm. And consistently the message was the only way to get through the suck, to embrace the suck, is to understand what are you doing it for? Like really understand, write it out, write it down. This is what my life's going to look like. This is what my business is going to look like. So that you don't give up in the day-to-day of the grind because there's a bigger purpose.
Yeah. And in my heavy growth years, in those, years when I had young kids, financially, I wasn't even close to where I am today. My wife was still working, full-time, crazy hours, like up at 5:30, even earlier than that, to be at the hospital at 6:30, so, but the reason I was clear based on a bunch of other things growing up. I didn't have a real stable dad. And so I was convicted around like being a great husband, great father. And those were the types of things that really drove me to embrace the things that were hard. But to your point about, if you don't do this work, it's like a slim chance you get anywhere and live a life worth living. Like, I just think the chances are, that you're not going to end up anywhere good are really high when you just don't slow down. And it's not, to Curtis's point, don't overthink it. Just take the 4 or 5 big buckets and just write out, like, in your finances, what do you want it to look like 3 years from now? Well, I want to have, pay off this car loan, or, I've got 3 credit cards, or I owe the IRS. Just write it down. Be honest with yourself. And then in your physical body, it's like, okay, I'm 230 and I know I should be 170. And, I've got some work to do there. So 3 years from now, I want to, have X% body fat, and then commit to some things that you're going to do in the first year of the 3-year vision. So I'm going to try to chip away at this credit card. I'm going to, get down from 230 to 215 in the next 12 months. I'm going to start walking 12,000 steps a day or whatever, and then in your business, it's like, okay, I want to do 100 sides 3 years from now. I did 20 last year, and so, okay, so the first year we're going to go from 20 to 40. What would have to happen? You have to get a part-time assistant, or you have to be better with your time blocks. You've got to cut out YouTube or social media. Like, it's just not rocket science. Right. And people just, like, to your point, it's like they liken it to like creating a vision board with like cutouts of magazines, and there's nothing tangible. But it literally is like, okay, 3 years vision, 1 year, what's the first big step of 3 steps, and then break it down into quarters. Every quarter, like what's, so in the weight loss example, it's like I'm 230, but in my first 12 months, I want to get down to 215. That's 15 pounds. So every quarter, I want to drop 4 pounds roughly, and let's just start tracking that. So I'm going to weigh myself every day. I'm going to track it in a little spreadsheet, and I'm going to get my Fitness Pal and start recording my meals, or I'm going to get an accountability partner, or like, just don't overthink it and just start doing the little things. Yeah. One really good resource around just habits, because most of this stuff is doing something long enough to get a result that makes it easy to do, and you're feeling good about getting the result. Atomic Habits by James Clear is probably the best resource. I've read a bunch of them, like Willpower Doesn't Work is really good. Compound Effect by Darren Hardy is really good, but you need to hone in on one of those resources and do the actual thing. So I've read or listened to, Atomic Habits probably 4 or 5 times for different seasons, for different reasons, so make sure you actually read that book and actually do it.
Yeah. I still, the biggest takeaway for me from that book was habit stacking. Mm-hmm. So even like vitamins, I go, okay, well, every morning I stick the vitamins on the stuff I do my hair with, because otherwise you get busy and you leave. But I'm always going to do my hair before I leave, because that's a habit I've done for 45 years. So great book. Yeah. So people need a vision. I think that's to me that is step one in shifting mindset. I did want to make a comment that you can speak to is I'm thinking of a specific agent. He was an employee of mine for 5 years, selling, helping agents build their business, and thought, well, I think I could do this. So he leaves, he does like 600,000 in GCI in his first year, built a huge business, and then again, worked himself into a job that he hated, despite the income. And he just came to the conclusion where he says, well, I'm not the visionary, and I'm not a manager. So he went and found a great team to join, where he could be the practitioner in a way that still helped him accomplish his vision and goals, where he just grinds on the phone. This year he did 1,000 dials a day for 50 days in a row, did 17 listings in those 50 days. He's now done 21 listings from the leads and then the team does everything else, and he gets his split, and he's making an amazing. So sometimes your vision, like if you want to build a business, you have to shift your mindset to be a business builder. If you come to the conclusion that I just don't want to do that, there's still other ways to achieve the freedom that you're looking for with the right team. And I wouldn't have said that 10 years ago.
Yeah, I totally agree. A well-run team that has the systems dialed in, and there's a decent culture. And I mean, we took a guy behind like a bar, like he was working, as a bartender 5 nights a week, and probably 5 of 5 nights he was coming home drunk to his wife, and so we took him from that environment, making about 55 grand, to netting over 300,000, and he was working probably 50 to 55 hours a week, but we had it so dialed in where we had, walking his dog, picking up his dry clean. We had runners to do personal errands for our high producers. We kind of had like a tiered approach in terms of the service levels, but, he brought in over $1 million GCI with our lead sources, with our tech, with our culture, with our cadence. So the splits weren't high, but he was taking home 300,000 plus. So if you go into that environment, it's not about the splits. It's about the freedom of being able to run your business on someone else's platform.
But full circle, I do think just if you don't have your vision written out of what you want, you may not know what path to take either. And I think a lot of agents get stuck in thinking, I got to build a business. They don't know what they're building. So then they just keep being busy, and now they feel like they don't have any control. And you don't have to figure it all out in a year, also, like, I mean, my first business plan, my second year, it was way more dialed in. My first one was I just opened up a Word document
And I just wrote out like, okay, I'm going to focus on my database, social media, expireds, for sale by owners. And that was like my whole business plan. I just wrote down like the daily activities, the annual. It didn't include a 3-year vision at that time.
Yeah.
But it was just something to follow where I had a little bit of focus. How was I going to get to 50? I think 50, 60 transactions was my goal in my first full year in real estate. And I hit 44. And so I just had like the lead gen levers that was my focus. And I wouldn't start a lead gen lever. This is another mindset trick. If you do want to build a bigger business, is I wouldn't mess with a lead gen lever if I didn't know it was good for multiple transactions per month. And in my mind, it had to be good for 50 transactions per year. So I started 0. So it's not like I started expireds at 50 transactions per year, but mentally I wanted to know I'm not going to mess with building this thing out unless I knew in my heart that it could bring in a couple of transactions per month, 20, 25,000 of revenue. So when I built $1 million business, it only had 4 lead gen levers: database, brand authority or social, expireds, and for sale by owners. And when I got junior agents, I threw open houses in there and those did pretty well. And yard signs as well, because we carried a lot of listings, but so it's just not a complicated business,
Right.
So to your point, like if you need to have some respite potentially inside a team environment that's your forever place, typically they get sick of that as well.
Yeah.
So
I think I want to keep going there because that I just wrote down step 1 of a lead gen lever is make sure choose something that can give you consistent, listings every single month. Let's talk more about lead gen levers, because if people are thinking, we very candidly, we get a lot of people that listen to somebody like you and go, okay, expired, so that makes sense. And then they go all in. They think they're going to grind 3 hours a day. They're going to do what my guy Kent did and make $1,000 a day and get 17 listings in the 2 months and then they go, I hate this, right? And as powerful as your vision statement might be to get you through that, that it may not be for you. So what other ways are you helping agents choose? What are the best levers in your, what lead gen lever am I setting up, and what does that even mean? What does it mean to set up a lead gen lever?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go 30,000 foot view, and then I'll land in the dirt. The approach I took, and it was early on, I called an expired, and he was super mean, and I didn't have thick skin, and I'm like, there's no way I'm doing this. So that was like a day into my journey of like outreach to expireds. I'm like, this is not it. So I just committed to only doing attraction-based marketing. I had, been exposed to Dan Kennedy in the early days. He's all about direct response marketing. So, as I contemplated like how I'm going to go about building my business, I just knew I wasn't going to be one of those guys. And I think they're few and far between that they're just wired. I've got a guy shows up on our, in my organization with EXP. He shows up every week. Last week, he uses your data source, I'm pretty sure. Last week, before the call, so 1 p.m. Eastern, and I think he's at least 1 hour behind. He's in Central. So before noon his time, last week he set 2 for sale by owners, and this week he set 2 expireds before each call. And
appointments with those leads.
Appointments. Yeah. And that's one day of the week, right? So even if there's a no-show or he's aggressive, whatever, if he sets, 10 appointments a week, and only 5 appointments he goes on, and he only lists, 2.5 to 3 homes a week, he's winning, the game.
Or one, right? I mean, exactly. That's 50 transactions. That meets the first criteria. Just doing, 50 deals.
Yeah. So the decision I made is I'm more of an attraction-based marketing approach. And this is the way I would build it. It's the mindset of 1 or more transactions per month. So database, you're always building your database. And this includes when you have a good conversation with an expired, good conversation with a for sale by owner, they go into your database and you treat them as if they're your best friend.
Right.
And they're going to get your entire touch system. So database touch, you build it, you feed it regularly, and you communicate with it and add a lot of value. And it's not all real estate. So when people just think of you, they're like, man, Curtis is just the most even getting stuff. You guys do this really well as a company. It's like I'm constantly getting invited to free coaching or a mastermind or this 6-week thing you're putting on now, or, it's like you want to be that person to your entire database. So you build it, feed it. And if I were to ask you a question like, Curtis, how many inner circle, know, like, and trust you in your database? What's that number? If you have no idea what that number is, people that have worked in our world, and I don't do paid coaching anymore, but people that are in our world, we track that daily, literally daily. It's like, where did you start the quarter at? We work in 90-day cycles. You started your inner circle database, know, like, trust. And how many did you add on Monday? It totals it, brings the number to the cell. It's a Google sheet. How many did you add on Tuesday? It brings it over. And then we end the week. So 13 weeks in a quarter, 52 weeks, so 4 quarters in a year. And that's how we build a business. So that's one thing. And that's a lead gen lever. So it's constant focus, and you're viewing it as, because we have people doing this, and you were in that room with people that have a database that is doing 7 figures. Right. You view that, even if you're starting at 0, you view it as a 7-figure annual income pillar, because then you're not going to argue with me. If I ask you to sit down for 15 minutes every day and who do I know that I could add value over time and they can become part of my inner circle database. And your goal is to add a couple names a day, Monday through Friday. And that's how you add 10 contacts a week, 500 contacts a year, and then it's game over. 10% will convert with the right touch system. So that's a lead gen lever, database touch blueprint. Brand authority is one good post a day. That's not all about real estate. You're rotating through, to your point, family, fitness, faith, future, finances, and then you're going to hit them with real estate. So it's like the Gary V book, jab, 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 right hook. So you're not always real estate. So, and then you're just communicating with folks online, and you're trying to get them from online social into your inner circle database. So that's brand authority builder. That's another lead gen lever. You can't ignore it. And then something like, you have to decide what you're going to do with expireds. You've got to get a data source. It's so much leverage just to pay someone else to do it, where it's going to just show up on your dashboard every day. And even, uploading old expireds is a whole nother conversation that we can get into. But let's say your next lead gen lever is expireds, which it would be mine if you put me back to production. Decide what you're going to do with them. There's an agent in my market that uses a data source like yours, may even use yours. He lists about he sells 60 to 75 listings per year. I think his son works the buyers, but all he does on the expireds that come out, I think he works a big geography. Mm-hmm. He basically just drops off a listing packet. It's a binder. So is that a lot of work? Is it expensive each binder? Is it, if you're doing 750,000 to 900,000 of GCI and you have your son working the buyer side and you've got expense of those binders, maybe you're handing out a couple hundred binders at $100 per binder. So that's 20,000. You know what I mean? So that's one approach. Or you can direct mail them, which is the approach that I've taken forever. Or you can call them and just make sure you use your tech to play by the rules there. But you've got to do something with that data source. I don't care what it is. You're not in the game of real estate if you ignore expireds. And then it's the same approach. And FSBOs are even better, because this whole value add approach, the system for FSBOs, that lead gen lever, is how can I provide so much value to every for sale by owner that hits the market, where they will bring me in to interview when and it's the percentage is 80% actually. So that's another lead gen lever, where we have just a series of 8 value add pieces that we send out. We physically mail them valuable things in the mail. And every Friday it's hey, Curtis, what day it is? FSBO Friday. I'm just following up with all my for sale by owners. Did you have any showings this past week? Any challenges? Did you get that property disclosure that I sent out? Make sure you fill that out if you get an offer. That's a required state document. All right. reach out. You've got my cell. Anything comes up in this next week, I'll talk to you on Friday. And Curtis, I am here. If you ever interview an agent and you want me to consult, come in and give you a free valuation. That's all I ask, to kind of support you in the process. So those are 4 lead gen levers that if you focused in the next 3 to 5 years, you'd be selling 8 homes a month just from those 4 lead gen levers.
Yep. Yeah. It's we don't often do a shameless pitch on a podcast, but in our system, we have postcards built in that we vetted, that we know get a good response, that have QR codes so that when somebody scans it, so that you can follow up. There's the marketing tools. We want to give power to the agents to have their own lever, to scale their own funnel. I wish agents understood marketing speak, because I would call it all the time a funnel. Like, you have to own your own funnels, that you have control over scaling. That is the only way to scale your business. And when you have, let's use high turnover neighborhoods, and when you have a high turnover neighborhood and you consistently market to them, more transactions are coming out of that neighborhood. More transactions come out of a list of expireds than any other lead source, any other AI predictive model, anything. It's 45.6% right now as of October 23rd. The last 12 months, 45.6. That is a ton of listings. Mm-hmm. And it's just a matter of are you going to be the one that had a relationship so that they choose you?
Yeah. And then even not even getting into geo leads, easily identify. I didn't think it would be so easy in my market to identify 8, 9, 10% turnover areas and neighborhoods at decent price points, but we found a bunch of them. And then the game, one agent has been doing this, does a dump or donate. So in that neighborhood, they get for free, they get Habitat to show up with a truck. Yeah. And they get a residential small load clean out dump company to show up, and basically free advertisement for a couple hours for them. Yeah. And so dump or donate in the neighborhood, and they can call the neighborhood now because they're not asking for business. They're just like, hey, this is Lars, your favorite real estate agent. I'm doing a dump or donate Tuesday morning. On your way out of the neighborhood, make sure I also have a coffee there for you. Are you going to, if you do 6 of those types of things in a neighborhood of 1,000 homes that has a good turnover, virtually no cost, are you going to lose the game of real estate in that neighborhood doing that, knowing that you're going in on an 8, 9, 10%? That's the magic of your system. So I know you're not plugging your system, but when we did this geo farm mastermind, and I had top agents, just all they do to knowing where to go after is the right. Entire game.
Right.
So,
well, if people aren't convinced, they need to go build some funnels, build some levers in their business that they can, we call them levers because it's something you can constantly rely on, that you can pull, and what is happening when you do that. And I hope they're convinced.
Yeah, paying someone else money to generate a lead there's zero leverage in it. So we never went big on, let's just pick on Zillow, and I have no problem with it. I was never big on paid leads, but I did some of it. But we saw Zillow leads, until we dumped it completely, go from $40 per lead, and we were good at converting, so we could get massive returns on that, like 12x returns. Within 24 months, go from $40 to $200. Yeah. And this is
now 40%, right?
Yeah, pre-flex or any of that stuff. So now at 40% in my market, it's that $200 lead is now you got to take out the conversion, but yeah, it's way higher than that now. So they dictate your entire business, and they're going to set their prices on a good converting solo agent. So you'll never be able to hire a junior agent. You'll never be able to bring in a lower converting person to work those leads. And it's just an insane life. It's like, I've never done crack, but I would imagine being addicted to crack, and you keep going back to the drug dealer, and why am I buying crack? It's my whole life is falling apart. I keep doing crack, but I keep doing it because I'm addicted to it. Yeah. I don't know anything that makes me feel good, like paying for Zillow leads or whatever. Yeah. So, yeah.
But well, yeah, I mean, you're dependent on their algorithm though, and I don't think people need to go dump it. The goal should be reduce that to a smaller percentage of your overall business, so that when their algorithm changes and all of a sudden the leads aren't converting or you're not getting as many, you still have control over the other 80% of your business of where all the business is really coming from.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, like if you were to wean off crack, you probably don't want to go cold turkey.
Yeah, you need to
wean off over a couple of years as these other lead gen levers are building up, and you're closing one a month from your database. You're closing one every other month from social media. Your expired direct response is coming to fruition, or you're building out a geo farm. That stuff will replace the stuff you're spending way too much money on pretty quickly.
Yeah, maybe Ozempic is a better analogy.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the crack cocaine doesn't hit. It's good.
Hey, Lars, thank you so much for being here. Any last, words of wisdom you can leave with everybody?
I'll leave with this, and this is the same advice I gave. Someone that is coming new into the industry and veteran agents alike. Nothing happens at the speed we want it to. So the reason these paid leads are so prolific is that it's satisfying to go on a website and click a couple buttons, and all of a sudden I've got a lead source set up, and leads are like quote unquote leads, even are coming in. And so just know that anything worth having is worth the energy to build out, and you own the system. It's on your tech. So just take your time to just get a vision for, if you want to close 4 deals a month. If it takes you 3 years to get there, I just laid it out for you what it takes to close, a deal in each of those 4 lead gen levers. Just give yourself 3 years to get there, but take the steps, this first quarter. I view it as 12 90-day cycles to get to a 3-year vision. That's a lot of 90-day cycles. Focus on one thing, and even one aspect of one thing in a 90-day cycle. Don't think it's all going to happen in 90 days, and just give yourself some time to build a business worth owning versus the grind it, relying on someone else's, marketing prowess or lead gen tactics or funnels that you don't own. So just give yourself time to build it right, and, have enough conviction that you are building it the right way as these new leads are coming at you and you're marketed to all the time. Just be convicted and stand firm in your approach to build a real business versus just, pay for leads.
There you have it, everybody. Lars, if people want to get in touch with you or reach out or learn more about what you do, where would they find you?
I would say go to Agent Freedom OS. So operating system, agentfreedomos.com. And I've since kind of changed directions. I'm not folded up my coaching company. I'm just helping agents, direct mentorship and helping them build businesses that give them massive freedom. So that's my focus currently.
Love it. Thank you so much, Lars, for being here. Everybody else who's tuned in, thank you for hanging out with us. We know that your time is valuable. We're grateful that you would spend some time with us. We hope that you take 1 or 2 things that you don't have to implement everything. That's where people fail, is they go, oh, I got to do it all. And then they feel overwhelmed and you end up not doing anything. Some is better than none. So take the one thing that you think that you can implement and put it into practice and start seeing those listings. Awesome. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next Thursday at 1:00.
See ya.